Barack Obama says that he waited with the rest of America to learn that General Colin Powell was in fact endorsing him for president on Meet the Press yesterday. That confirmation came on Meet the Press with Tom Brokaw. The senator laid out what role he hopes the general will play in an Obama administration during an exclusive interview with Matt Lauer on Today.
He will have a role as one of my advisors. He's already served in that function even before he endorsed me. Whether he wants to take a formal role, whether there's something that's a good fit for him, I think is something that he and I would have to discuss.
Mark Whitaker is Washington Bureau Chief for NBC News. Mark, welcome. There's been a lot of argument, pro and con, as to how big an impact this is. Let me just play for you within the hour Rush Limbaugh's reaction.
Now back to General Powell. I just want to button this up because the drive-bys had a tizzy over my allegation that his nomination was about race. Well, let me say it louder, and let me say it even more plainly. It was totally about race. The Powell nomination or endorsement, totally about race.
Well, of course, General Powell on Meet the Press said it wasn't about race, that obviously this is transformational and historic, but that his main reasons were in watching the last 6 weeks of the McCain campaign. He was disappointed, was his word, in John McCain's response on the economy, on other issue, on William Ayers. What is your conclusion?
Well, Andrea, I'll tell you that if it was only about race, Colin Powell could have endorsed Barack Obama months ago. And getting him on Meet the Press was something that the producers and Tom Brokaw worked months to do. First talked to Powell before the conventions, and he made it clear that he hadn't made up his mind and that he wasn't going to say anything until he had had more time to study both candidates and to study their positions. And I think the reason also that he chose ultimately Meet the Press was that he wanted to lay out all of his reasons, which he did very, very eloquently, I thought.
And was not interrupted. He was able to give a longer explanation of all of his reasons. And let me play one of his reasons, which had to do with the economic crisis. Let's watch.
In the case of Mr. McCain, I found that he was a little unsure as to how to deal with the economic problems that we were having. And almost every day there was a different approach to the problem, and that concerned me.
And he's talking about a friend of 25 years. So this went beyond what some people might have predicted, that he had weighed the alternatives and found Obama more compelling. He was harshly critical of the McCain campaign on the subject of William Ayers, the robocalls, on a lot of issues.
Yeah, I mean, clearly he was very upset by some of the campaigning. But, you know, I think Powell in the end is more focused on governing and what kind of president either Obama or McCain would be. And I think one of the things that he finds appealing on Obama is at least the promise that he's someone who would govern in a different way, in a less political way than George W. Bush has, and perhaps some people would argue than Bill Clinton did. One of the interesting things, you know, he owes his career, really, or at least his career in government, to Bush's father. And Bush's father, as we recall, in '88 ran a very tough, negative personal campaign and then governed in a very different way. So I think Powell is not necessarily against tough campaigning, but he wants to see the process of government return to a more bipartisan, competent, less political way of doing things.
And when you talk about competence, clearly one of the issues, decisive issues, was Sarah Palin. I mean, I had talked to General Powell, and he had said, I'm going to wait to see whom they nominate. And there was a clear difference after that decision in terms of disqualification.
No, look, and I think this is a big, big problem for McCain right now because, you know, we've talked about this before on this show. You know, I think there still are questions about Obama in a lot of people's minds. I mean, the fact is, you know, he doesn't have a tremendously long record. People are, in a way, you know, people who support him are taking a little bit of a chance on what kind of president he's going to be. It's more about temperament, it's about intelligence and so forth and so on that he's shown in this campaign. So they might have reason at the end of the process to be revisiting that decision and thinking maybe, you know, John McCain is safer. But Sarah Palin makes that process a lot more difficult, and you see that mirrored in a lot of these editorial endorsements that Obama is now getting from a number of newspapers that haven't endorsed in years or have always endorsed the Republican candidate.
Bringing up Palin as the factor.
Yeah.
Mark Whitaker, thank you very much. And coming up, McCain supporter.